The corridor stretched into darkness, fluorescent lights flickering like dying fireflies. Every step I took echoed against cold concrete walls, bouncing back at me in uneven, mocking rhythms. I was supposed to be the new night security officer, a routine job, yet something about this place felt wrong, as if the building itself was breathing around me. A scraping sound cut through the silence, metallic and uneven, like claws dragging across steel. My pulse spiked. I froze. It came from the far end, where a heavy door loomed, painted gray with a bright red sign. Restricted, authorized personnel only. I thought of walking away, retreating to the safety of the empty office, but curiosity pushed me forward. The sound stopped. Then, a whisper, low and rasping, slithered along the walls. "You shouldn't be here." I swung my head left and right. The hallway was empty. Shadows pooled in corners, stretching impossibly long. My hand trembled as it hovered over the door handle. Something scraped again, closer this time, dragging along the floor just beyond the threshold. And then, without warning, the door creaked open on its own. Slowly, squealing inch by inch, as if inviting me in. My heart hammered against my ribs. A cold, unnatural wind swept past, carrying a smell like iron and decay. I swallowed hard, barely able to whisper to myself, I shouldn't go in. But the door seemed to breathe, alive, waiting for me. The door hung open just a crack, the dark inside almost liquid, pressing against the edges of the frame. My fingers itched to pull it closed, but some part of me I didn't recognize, forced me forward. The air inside was thick, stale, metallic, carrying the faint tang of rust and machine oil. My boots clicked on the worn concrete floor as I stepped into the darkness, every echo a shout in the silence. The restricted area wasn't large, not at first glance, but the shadows made it feel endless. Pipes twisted along the ceiling like arteries, their joints leaking faint drips that plinked in random rhythms. A single light above flickered on and off, revealing brief glimpses of equipment whose purpose I couldn't guess. Rusted control panels, stacks of crates, and heavy carts, their wheels frozen mid-turn as though time itself had paused. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself it was just an old building, tired and groaning. Yet, as I moved deeper, tiny details began to prick at me. Fingerprints smeared across polished metal surfaces, an overturned chair tucked against a wall, a file folder lying open with papers scattered across the floor. None of it made sense. This place was supposed to be off-limits, unvisited, sterile. A sound made me jerk around, a whisper, faint but clear, brushing against the back of my neck. "Go back." I spun, heart hammering, but the corridor was empty. My own voice came out shaky when I muttered, "Hello? Is anyone there?" No answer. Only the scraping again. Slowly, deliberately, coming from deeper in the room. I reached the far end of the hall and found a narrow stairwell descending into near-total darkness. The railing was cold under my hand, slick as though wet, though the air was dry. My flashlight barely penetrated the shadows, and the beam trembled as my hand shook. On the wall, a faded sign read, "Level B, authorized access only. Do not descend without clearance." My instinct screamed to leave, to retreat to the security office where the cameras might offer some sense of control. But another part of me, curiosity, stubbornness, or maybe stupidity, kept me moving forward. The stairs seemed to breathe beneath my steps, groaning softly, the sound echoing like a warning. Halfway down, I froze. A faint tapping echoed somewhere below, rhythmic and uneven, as though someone or something was knocking from inside the walls. My heart raced, throat tight, mind scrambling for rational explanations. Maintenance. Rodents. A loose pipe. Each answer seemed less likely than the next. The air grew colder, carrying a strange metallic smell that made my stomach churn. At the bottom of the stairs, the corridor opened into a larger chamber. The walls were lined with doors, each identical, each labeled with cryptic symbols or numbers I didn't recognize. And then I saw it, movement. Just at the edge of my vision, shadows shifting against shadows. A figure, or the suggestion of one, standing still, facing away. I froze, unsure if it was human or something else. The scraping sound began again, closer this time, echoing off the walls. A voice whispered, sharp and urgent, barely more than a hiss. "Some doors, you just don't open." I stumbled back, tripping over a crate, my flashlight clattering to the floor. The beam skittered across the room and landed on a door unlike the others. Black, heavy, with no label, no handle. Just a faint outline that seemed to pulse under the dim light. My chest tightened. Something inside me screamed to leave, yet my eyes were drawn to it, as if the darkness itself was calling my name. Then I heard it, a soft exhale right behind me. I spun, but the corridor was empty. My flashlight caught a fleeting glimpse of the figure again, closer now, its head tilting unnaturally. My stomach dropped. The air felt heavier, pressing against my chest, every breath a struggle. I swallowed, trying to force calm into my voice. I shouldn't be here," I muttered, my words trembling. The whisper came again, almost directly into my ear. "You were warned." A sudden clang echoed somewhere above, and the lights flickered violently before plunging the chamber into darkness. My flashlight shook in my hands, barely keeping the shadows at bay. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But my feet felt rooted to the floor, my body unwilling to move, as though the room itself had claimed me. I forced a step forward. The black door seemed to breathe, its edges pulsing in the darkness. Something scratched across the surface, soft at first, then growing louder, as though whatever was behind it was aware I was here, aware I had crossed a line. And in that moment I knew. Whatever lay beyond this door wasn't meant to be seen. The black door loomed before me, silent and impossible, its edges pulsating as though it breathed. I wanted to step back, to retreat up the stairs and escape this place. My legs, however, ignored my will. Every instinct screamed that crossing this threshold was wrong. Still, I reached out, fingertips brushing against the cold, matte surface. A sound from behind me made me jerk, a faint, dragging shuffle, the unmistakable echo of feet, or something, following. I swung around. Empty corridor. Shadows pooled in the corners, deeper than they should be, folding in on themselves. My flashlight flickered, and for a heartbeat, I saw a shape crouched in the far corner, perfectly still, then gone when the light steadied. "Who's there?" I called, voice tight. No answer. Only the metallic scrape again, echoing from the black door, like fingernails against steel. I stepped back, almost tripping over a crate. My flashlight caught a glimpse of the facility's ceiling. Pipes sagged unnaturally, wires dangling like lifelines to some unseen horror above. Dust motes danced in the light, drifting like tiny phantoms. I swallowed, heart pounding, and forced myself to move past the door into a narrow hallway I hadn't noticed before, a dead-end corridor that seemed to stretch far beyond the walls. The first micro-event struck without warning. The air shifted, a whisper of movement, soft but deliberate, and a faint odor of iron rose, strong as blood. A filing cabinet rattled, its drawers moving slightly as though someone or something had leaned against it, just out of view. I froze. My mind scrambled for rational explanations. Maintenance. A rat. A wind draft. But the air was still. Too still. This isn't real, I whispered to myself. From the end of the hall came a soft voice, raspy, almost human, almost familiar. "You don't belong here." I spun, flashlight beams slicing across the walls. Nothing. Only a shadow that stretched longer than it should, as if the room itself was leaning toward me. The whispers began then, faint at first, unintelligible, like a group of people speaking behind a soundproof wall. I tilted my head, straining, and realized they weren't speaking. They were calling names. My name, over and over in broken, agonized tones. My pulse spiked. I ran toward the nearest door, throwing it open. A small office lay inside, shelves of dusty manuals and empty binders. On a desk, a terminal flickered to life by itself, letters typing across the screen. "They see you now." I yanked the power cable, plunging the room back into silence, yet the feeling of being watched remained. Something moved behind the glass in the next room, a figure so still it could have been a shadow, yet its head tilted toward me. I blinked, and it was gone. I stumbled back into the hallway, trying to rationalize. Maybe it was exhaustion. Night shifts, old building, the stress of a new assignment. But the signs were everywhere. A chair teetered slowly, then fell. A door shut behind me with a soft, mechanical click. The air grew colder, heavier, pressing on my chest. I pressed on, toward a larger chamber at the center of the restricted area. The room stretched wider than it should, or maybe I had lost my sense of scale. On the walls, markings scratched into paint, symbols I couldn't comprehend. Some were faded, almost erased. Others glowed faintly under the flickering lights. I reached out, fingertips brushing a symbol. It burned against my skin. "Leave," a whisper said right into my ear. I spun again. Empty. My flashlight revealed the doorway behind me, closed, heavy, almost alive. I realized then that the hallway behind me had shifted. The doors weren't where they had been. Objects were moved slightly, rearranged as though the building itself was rearranging to trap me. I heard voices then, one distinctly clear, shaking. I told him. I warned him. I froze. It was the security officer who had disappeared a year ago, or at least what remained of his voice. Not in memory, not in recording, but alive, trembling in the darkness. My stomach turned. Every rational thought screamed that he should not be here, and yet, the whispers pulled me further, deeper into the building. As I followed the voices, the stories unfolded. Hints of the horror buried in the restricted area. A lab once active here experiments on human cognition and perception. An object, hidden in the black room, that was never meant to be disturbed. Warnings ignored. Staff vanished. The whispers weren't just echoes. They were warnings, pleas, echoes of people who had trespassed and never returned. Then came the micro-events that shattered my tenuous grasp on reality. A monitor flickered on, showing the hallway behind me. But when I turned, it was empty. Papers floated slightly in the air, drifting as though caught in a gentle current, but the air was still. Doors that had been shut creaked open slowly, then slammed before I could reach them. Shadows moved independently of light, stretching across walls like living ink. Each event chipped away at my sanity, gnawing at my confidence in perception. I began to question everything. Was I alone, or was I being led? Was the building alive, or something in it? The whispers grew louder, forming short phrases. "We are waiting." "Don't touch it." "The door." "Never open the door." I stumbled into a room filled with filing cabinets. Papers rustled as if blown by wind, but the air was still. One file lay open, photographs spilling onto the floor. Faces I recognized, some staff missing for years, eyes hollow, mouths open in silent screams. My stomach churned. One photographed me standing exactly where I was now. I bolted down the hallway, the corridors folding and stretching, turning familiar doors into strange alien spaces. My flashlight illuminated the floor ahead, catching the glint of something metallic. I froze. A small keycard embossed with the black door symbol lay on the floor. It hadn't been there moments before. My hand shook as I reached for it. And then I heard it. The scraping. Closer. Faster. Deliberate. A whisper in the dark. "It knows you." I wanted to scream, but my voice stuck. My legs refused to move. I realized with sickening clarity. The horror wasn't just around me, it was inside me. And whatever waited behind that black door, it had been expecting me. The black door loomed again, impossible in its silence. I could hear nothing but the pounding of my own heart and the soft, irregular thumps of something moving in the darkness beyond. The keycard trembled in my hand. Every rational part of me screamed to run, to throw it away, to flee back to the stairwell and escape this nightmare. But I knew, with a sick certainty, that the moment I turned, the door would never allow me back. I swiped the card. The lock clicked. A gust of cold air blew out, carrying the metallic tang of blood and rust. The door swung open slowly, groaning as though it resented the intrusion. Shadows spilled from inside like ink across the hallway. I swallowed, each breath a rasping effort. Inside, the room defied sense. The walls stretched and contracted as I stepped in, folding space in impossible ways. Pipes coiled across the ceiling like serpents. Monitors lined the walls, flickering with the faces of missing staff, some distorted, some screaming silently, eyes wide and empty. And in the center, a darkness. Pulsing, alive, an entity I could not comprehend, yet felt pressing against my mind. "You shouldn't have come here," it whispered. A voice, fragmented, pulling from the memories of all the people who had vanished. "It's too late." I stumbled backward, tripping over a cable. The monitors flashed violently, showing the same hallway I had come from, but warped, twisting, impossible. Doors were open and shut in impossible sequences, corridors stretching into infinity. I realized I could not escape. Every exit led deeper into the entity's labyrinth. "Help me," one voice pleaded. My own, or someone else. I ran, but the floor beneath me seemed alive, giving way and folding, shifting. Shadows detached from walls, forming grotesque humanoid figures that whispered my name, circling, never close enough to touch but always watching, always present. My mind screamed for coherence, logic, but there was none. Time itself stuttered. A monitor showed me stepping into the same hallway I had entered 10 minutes ago, though my wristwatch said hours had passed. "Stop!" I shouted, voice cracking. "Leave me alone." The entity responded not with words but with sensation. The walls pulsed, cold pressing against my skin. Air thickened. Each breath was laborious, heavy with iron and decay. The monitors flickered again. One face, familiar, twisted into a grin. The security officer who had vanished a year ago. He tilted his head, eyes hollow. "You shouldn't have come." My hands trembled. Every nerve screamed. I could feel the black door behind me, yet when I spun, it had vanished, replaced by another corridor. Endless, bending, alien. Shadows reached, stretching impossibly, brushing my shoulders and arms, leaving chills that burrowed deep into bone. Then came the whispers. Countless voices overlapping, shrill and pleading. "It's inside you. You can't leave." The doors, they know. I realized with paralyzing dread that the entity did not need to touch me to control me. Its presence was a pressure in my mind, a folding of reality around my perception. It had been shaping the building, the corridors, even my thoughts, all waiting for this moment. I screamed, and the echoes answered me. Not my voice, but a chorus of all those lost, all those consumed. They reached through the monitors, through the walls, through me, pulling sanity away piece by piece. "Why are you here?" The entity hissed, voice composed of hundreds of fragmented tones. "You were warned." I turned a corner and found a room. Walls lined with doors, hundreds of them, all black, all pulsing. My stomach dropped. The whispers became intelligible, urgent, screaming. "Never open them. Some doors, stay closed. It's waiting, waiting for you." A door at the far end swung open. Light spilled out, but not warm light. It glowed red and green, flickering, corrupting, bending the shadows toward it. A figure emerged. Tall, featureless, limbs stretching at impossible angles. Its head turned to me. A scream tore from my throat as I realized its face was an amalgamation of all the missing staff, eyes blank, mouths twisted in silent horror. "You shouldn't have come." I stumbled backward, falling against a wall. My flashlight skittered across the floor. Shadows writhed toward it, and for a moment I saw hundreds of eyes reflected in the lens, watching, judging. My limbs froze as if the building itself had gripped me, bending my body, warping my perception. I tried to run. Every corridor led back to the room of doors. Every step brought me closer to the center, to the entity. It whispered my fears, my memories, even my regrets. I felt it probe my mind, twisting thoughts into images of the missing, their faces staring at me in accusation. "Do you see now?" It hissed. "Some doors are never meant to be opened." I realized that all the warnings, all the whispers, all the anomalies, the chairs, the monitors, the floating papers, were designed to bring me here. To break me. To consume me. I stumbled toward the black door, now at the center of the room. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Behind it, the entity waited, coiled like a living void. My mind teetered on collapse. Memories I hadn't realized I carried surfaced. Every mistake, every moment of curiosity, every warning ignored. The door beckoned. I raised my hand. A scream tore through the room. Not mine, but every scream I had heard since arriving. Shadows convulsed. The entity surged forward, not touching, not striking, yet I could feel my mind bending, twisting, unraveling. My body fell to the floor, writhing as reality fractured around me. Then silence. The black door closed. Hard. The shadows collapsed. The monitors went dark. My breath came ragged, chest heaving. I tried to move, tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. The air was still, but heavier, oppressive. And in that stillness, I understood the truth. The entity had not killed me, yet. It had not needed to. Some doors, once opened, never truly closed. Some doors claimed you forever, bending your mind, folding reality, until there was no escape. I stared at the door. It pulsed one last time before settling into silent blackness. And somewhere inside the building, the whispers began again. Another one. Another one. Waiting for the next hand to open the door. I realized then that I was no longer alone in my thoughts. Something had followed me into my mind, into the space between reality and perception. My reflection on the monitor flickered, but it wasn't me. A pale, grinning version of myself stared back, mouth moving in sync with the whispers. It knows you. Always. I tried to scream. Only a whisper emerged. And then, darkness consumed everything. The facility hummed under fluorescent lights, indifferent and sterile, as if nothing had happened. The night shift arrived unaware of the chaos that had just passed, and the shell of me, was gone. Or maybe I had never truly existed outside the corridors of that cursed building. The security office was quiet, screens flickering on auto loop, cameras showing empty halls. Nothing appeared out of place. The supervisors frowned over attendance logs. The new officer had checked in but never returned to his station. A routine search was ordered, nothing more. And yet, there were signs. Small, almost imperceptible. Shadows that lingered too long in the corners of monitors. Doors in a restricted area that should have been sealed, now slightly ajar. Whispers in the vents. Soft but insistent. Something moved just beyond the edge of perception, waiting. Weeks later, rumors spread among night staff. He went in, and never came out, whispered a janitor, hunched over his mop. His eyes darted toward the hallways as if the walls themselves might hear him. Some doors, you just don't open. One employee, braver or perhaps more foolish than the rest, ventured near the restricted area. She returned pale, trembling, muttering about corridors that moved, shadows that watched, whispers calling her name. The supervisors dismissed it as stress, imagination, fatigue. But they did not see the doors change when they weren't looking, did not hear the faint scraping in the dark. Months passed. The building remained operational. Maintenance continued. The black door, the entity, and the endless halls, if they were waiting, remained hidden behind the mundane facade of a functioning facility. And yet, sometimes, when the hallways are empty and the fluorescent lights flicker, it is possible to hear it. The soft exhale of air that is not wind. The quiet shuffle of footsteps that cannot belong to anyone. A whisper just behind the ear. It knows you. Always. One evening, a new security officer, just like me, arrived for his shift. He checked in, unaware of the history, the warnings, the people who had vanished before him. He wandered the corridors, passing doors that seemed ordinary, until one caught his attention. Black, silent, almost breathing. His hand itched to reach out, and somewhere, far in the darkness, a whisper, soft and patient, reached him. You shouldn't be here. He hesitated. A cold draft brushed his neck, carrying the smell of iron and rust. He froze. Somewhere, deep inside, the building itself seemed to pulse, alive and aware. Every instinct screamed to run, yet curiosity held him. Because some doors are never meant to stay closed. And now, the building waits again. For the next hand that will turn the handle. For the next mind that will be pulled into its endless, twisting corridors. For the next curiosity too strong to resist. The black door pulses faintly, in rhythm with something beyond comprehension. The shadows stretch, alive in their silent watch. The whispers begin anew, threading through the empty halls, through the walls, through the minds of those who dare enter. It's inside you now, and it never leaves. Outside, the facility remains mundane. The streetlights glow. Cars pass by. Life goes on. And yet, inside, the air is thick alive. Something waits. Patient. Eternal. Because once a door is opened in the restricted area, there is no true escape. And I am still there. Somewhere. Not entirely gone. Not entirely me. Only the shadows remember. Only the whispers know. Only the doors. The doors stay closed, but they remember the hand that turned the handle. And now waiting for the next.